Well, the haters gonna hate, and the faker's gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
So welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I'm Jake, and as always, I'm in the basement of a certain someone.
Oh, who is that?
I don't know. I don't know who I am or where I am.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
But anyway, we're going to do a podcast episode, and this is going to be about Lost City and Cursed Village.
Yeah.
So, of course, before we get to that...
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm also on the podcast. If you're a video listener, you need to check out my shirt. My wife got this for me.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Valentine's Day present, right?
It says "Make Harambe alive again," and I love this shirt. This is great.
Yeah, it's very. What year was that?
She knows. You know what? It doesn't matter how long ago it was. Harambe will never die in my heart. # never forget.
That's true. You'll forget about it someday.
But, what? Bull.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so if you remember
My wife knows what I like. She's great.
Yeah.
So we talked last time about junking, yeah?
Yeah, last time we talked about junking, and we played out a kingdom that had some junking and had some ways to deal with the junk in it. And that was most of what we centered our discussion around, so we should read the cards in it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Sounds good.
So we have Alchemist, Oasis, Scheme, Devil's Workshop, Bazaar, Explorer, Festival, Mandarin, Market, Witch, and Trade. Once again, for our audio-only listeners, Alchemist, Oasis, Scheme, Devil's Workshop, Bazaar, Explorer, Festival, Mandarin, Market, Witch, and we have Trade.
Yeah, so this was an interesting kingdom. Obviously, the junking is Witch, and the main means of dealing with it is trade. So the interesting part here was, again, that there's no thinning, per se. You are just getting the junk and then turning that junk into silver.
Which is not junk.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good card.
Right, but the idea is that you are never decreasing the number of stop cards in your deck. That number is only going up, and you are...
Well, how much do I care about stop cards here, though, right?
It was important here because it kind of dictated the kind of deck that you could build. And so the... and you have to spend the $5 buy and line it up with the junk to make that happen. So the junk is certainly...
the important part.
That's inconveniencing you a good deal. If you remember, Adam and I advocated for kind of different decks.
Really? Because I don't know that you advocated for any deck at all.
I did.
You advocated for, like, dipping your toe in 3 different decks so that you don't have to be wrong.
This is true.
Yeah?
And I somehow managed to be wrong anyway, though. So,
oh, nice.
I advocated for...
We all have to do what we're best at.
Yeah, opening Silver Oasis and then basically... getting the Witch, obviously, and setting up some good trades, but also getting a bunch of markets and bazaars and building up a whole bunch and possibly some festivals and getting to this point where you are threatening to double province. If the opponent doesn't pressure you, you build a double province, but if they do, then you just start single provincing and you're not much slower off for it. Turns out that's bad.
Yeah, so
let's talk about your deck.
I said that Alchemist was going to be pretty good.
You were going to open with a potion.
Because you want to line up your business. And so I said you should open Potion Oasis, get some Alchemist going on, get a Witch ASAP, put a couple schemes in the deck, and draw a bunch of cards. Not everything, but, enough cards so that you can line up your business and play your Witch a decent amount of time. And I would just like to point out that we played one game where each of us went for the strategies we just described, and I won that game, and therefore I'm right about everything that I said, not only with regards to this kingdom, but to that entire episode, and everything I've ever said about Dominion, or anything at all in life in general.
It's true. I hadn't thought about it like that,
Yeah.
mostly because I'm not actually sure that happened. Did we play that game? where
Yeah,
we both
and
went
I
for
won. I won.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember, like...
Those were good times, and everything after that was me just playing around with different things, so none of it counted.
Just trying out all the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so if you can't tell the sarcasm here,
I'm not being sarcastic.
the alchemist was terrible. You don't open with a potion here.
Okay, I mean, I'll give you this much. I think if you're gonna go for alchemist, I think you are better off not opening with the potion.
Okay.
Because you don't want to get too far behind on getting junked. You need to get a witch ASAP, start playing that witch ASAP, and then maybe get the potion a little bit later so you can draw some cards a little bit later.
So you're up for delaying the potion. What turn did you think you wanted to get it?
Well, it kind of depends. So, like, if you can... Obviously, you need to get the witch turn 3, turn 4. And, if you have $5, you're probably going to be doing that. If you don't... and you have $4, then, get the potion, but sometimes you don't, and you have to wait a little bit longer.
So you're opting for... I like that a lot better. I like that play where you're not opening with the potion, and you're delaying the potion. I think that you could go even a little farther, though. I think that you should keep delaying the potion. And just keep delaying it, and just not get it.
Turn 5, turn
just wait.
6.
You keep delaying the potion until you are playing a different game of Dominion where Alchemist is good. So the
thing doesn't have to be alchemist, man.
Right, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah. Like maybe our kingdom for this episode.
Yeah,
it's got a potion card. Maybe it's good.
That's true.
Maybe we'll talk about it at the end of this episode.
Spoilers.
Stay tuned to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Now let's talk about what deck was actually good here.
I just described it.
Yeah, no, you open silver, and you are getting the witch turn 3, turn 4. You're probably getting...
Unless you're...
yeah, and then you are basically playing witch with money and trade. Now, here's the deck that I settled on thinking was best, and I'm confident that this was pretty close to best, if not best. I opened silver, and then on the next shuffle, I got my witch on 5, but then I got a scheme after that on my next 3s, and I never had more than 2 schemes in the deck, but I liked that a little better than the second witch, just because,
Scheme can function as like another copy of that really good card in your deck.
Exactly.
If you're curious, you can refer to our recent episode on the card, Ashima, which goes into more detail.
Yeah, and it was... So, like, it's that or the second witch, and sometimes I got the second witch instead. A lot of it depended on how things worked out. If, I hit 5 a second time, and I didn't already have a scheme in the deck, I went ahead and took the second witch. But the... Oh, and the key thing here was I hit 5, and it wasn't a good trade hand. Right, so I'm going to take a good trade over the second witch.
Turn 3 or turn 4? Oh, over the second witch.
Over the second witch.
Second witch, yeah.
Because I can get the scheme, and that is kind of giving me similar witch coverage to the second witch.
But you definitely want to get that first witch.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
So you're mostly just doing trades all day, and you're doing the single province thing, and... yeah, it turns out that was just way faster than anything either of us had described.
Yeah, except for the thing that I described, because I won that one game, yeah. So it's a shame that none of the results support what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
You can read about that.
Watch the video.
Yeah, totally.
The video, yeah. You can see how many games I won with my strategy.
You can watch the Alchemist deck in all of its glory.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did try a few variations on it, but really all that matters is that one game, right? Because no one plays Kingdoms multiple times.
Right.
I mean, only idiots do that, right?
No, definitely. That sounds horrible.
I mean, if you do that, then you're probably just bad at Dominion. No, you're definitely bad at Dominion.
I have had people ask me before, like, how the do you do that? Like, about our kingdom analysis thing, they're like...
Oh, it's really easy. There's a button right there.
No, they're like, how the do you put yourself through that, of playing the same kingdom over and over? And I'll admit, it's not my favorite part of doing the podcast, but it's a segment a lot of people like, so I'm willing to power
I
through
don't
it.
I don't mind it. Like, it's not this terrible thing. Like,
It's fine.
I mean, really, like, if
Some
we're gonna,
kingdoms more than others.
Well, okay, well, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
But like, it's definitely like it's a different way to work on your skill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm gonna play different kingdoms, then I could potentially deeply analyze my play and record games and try and get other people's thoughts and stuff. And that's one thing, but like actually playing something out and doing a deep dive, like it can improve different aspects of your game.
I'll agree with that, definitely.
Yeah. Like there's definitely value in something like this, especially when you have a podcast where you talk about Dominion.
Right. That's true. I mean,
Who the would think that that's not something we would do? Anyway, sorry.
Wait, yeah.
I'm a little cranky tonight. Okay, I had a really day. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
No, it's good. Actually, no, 100% what you said. It's not something I would do all the time.
President's Day is a federal holiday. Okay.
Is it?
Yes, it's a federal holiday. No one was at the office building where I work today, okay? But guess who was there? Me and everyone else from my company, because we don't get the day off. And you know what? It's also the first day of Engineers Week. You know something? If they wanted to show their appreciation for engineers, you know what I'd like?
To not go to work.
Maybe to get a federal holiday off. I mean, they gave me cake, and I mean, the cake was pretty good, but I wanted to stay at home. My wife and I were up late last night completing this 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and I'm cranky, and I didn't get that much sleep. And then we went to the gym, and there were 1 million people. Okay, sorry. And we're going to be bickering this whole episode. This topic is great. Like, I read Jake's outline, and he must be high on crack or something.
Well,
You're in for a treat, guys.
I am, but also, like, where I think that we have some disagreements about these cards is the other thing. But
yeah, man.
Yeah. So anyway,
so you like playing the kingdoms multiple times?
Yeah, I do. Certain, it's not something I would do all the time, but I just wanted to actually just reinforce your point just now that doing
the President's Day should be
doing a deep dive into a kingdom helps you kind of flex some different muscles than you get just reading a new kingdom and playing it out randomly.
Harambe did nothing wrong, Jake.
It's true. So, Lost City and Cursed Village. Those are the cards that we're talking about this time. And why did we decide to lump these together into one episode?
Because when you play it from a 5-card starting hand, you end up with 6 cards and 2 actions. Yeah. And these cards, they both cost 5, and they have a drawback when you gain them.
Yeah, that's right, because we had about half an episode worth of stuff to say about both of them. So that's why these are in the same episode.
But remember, Jake, if you ignore theme, you're just going to lose games.
Yeah, so the theme of these 2 cards is that they are these $5 villages that can increase your hand size. And
yeah, man.
That's quite good deck control for one card to accomplish.
That's pretty ill, man.
Yeah.
So, like, do you want to... Maybe we should, like, read one of the...
Yeah.
We were going to talk about Lost City first, yeah?
Yeah, we should go ahead and read both of them, right? And then talk about one of them, and then talk about the other one.
Yeah, okay. Read your favorite, and I'll read the other one. You ready?
Okay.
1, 2, go.
Wait, I don't have a favorite. Okay.
Oh, I do.
I'll read Lost City.
That was my favorite.
Lost City gives you +2 cards and +2 actions, and it costs 5. So when you gain this, each other player draws a card.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
It's from Adventures.
It's from Adventures. All right, so
and then Cursed Village is a $5 action Doom from the Nocturne expansion. Doom just means you get the hexes out. It says +2 actions, draw until you have 6 cards in hand, and then it says when you gain this, receive a hex.
Yeah.
And we're now going to read off all 12 hexes. And no, we're not going to do that. I'd rather die. So let's talk about Lost City.
Yeah, so...
It's a village. It's draw. It's Lost City. Woo!
I mean, the thing is that any single card that... Like, when I think about these elements of, like, a high payload deck, I'm looking at a kingdom that's going to reward me for building up to multi-province turns. You know, you look for a few things. You look for draw. You look for plus buy, right? Or some kind of extra gains to reward bigger payload. and you look for a village, and any one card that does more than one of those things immediately signals to you, well, probably want to build a lot on this kingdom. And like we talked about that with Wharf and the plus cards and plus buy, I mean, you get similar considerations with Lost City. It's one card that does two of the things that you need to look for.
All right, so I have a different way of saying what is essentially the same thing. The way you said it now is really reasonable and a lot better than what you put in your outline, which I was going to pick apart. So I'm a little disappointed, but we'll get to it.
Okay, I can say something stupid if we... Let's see.
There's plenty of stuff on there we'll get to.
Okay.
What I'm going to say is, like, in most kingdoms, you're looking for the best payload you can have given the deck control resources available to you. And in the case of Lost City, you have a village and you have draw. Whenever you see Lost City, you're going to have both of these things, which means that you're going to be able to have some really big turns. Whatever payload is out there, if you have Lost City to support it, you're going to be able to do some really cool stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of times you build towards it.
Definitely, and these cards are these functions that these cards do, the +2 actions and the plus cards. They're so commonly useful that I'd kind of just call these like generically strong cards. In that, what I mean by that is that these cards are useful in so many different situations that like pretty much any deck that I can think of that that I'd be building would be improved if I, got these for free. So the only time I wouldn't go for these to some degree is when there's some other more important thing, or there's just some better option that does what they do.
So what you're saying is true of most cantrips, actually?
Well,
so I want to go even a step further.
Okay,
I mean,
sure.
These are cantrips. I mean, Lost City is a cantrip, right? But it's more than that. I mean, these cards, yes, they're good. Any deck would be improved by them, pretty much. But it's more, right? It's a village and it's draw. And to say that they're generically strong, I would also say that not only would you just like these in just about any deck, but you're going to be able to fundamentally change what you're doing in a very significant, powerful way.
Yeah.
If you put these cards in your deck. I would say the only support that Lost City is really lacking is maybe thinning, but it's not really required.
I mean,
you can basically do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for some payload, right? You specifically probably some terminal payload because that tends to be stronger for being a stop card. But
really any payload.
Just payload.
It doesn't have to be terminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing, I mean,
terminal versus non-terminal is not it's a binary thing.
No.
It's more like it's fluid.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, a card is either not terminal or it's maybe terminal, but.
Or it's
anyway, but
well, like nobles, right? Sometimes it's terminal, sometimes it's not terminal. Anyway, go ahead.
So I'm gonna say that these cards are expensive too, right? Because they don't just cost 5, but they also have this drawback. That's part of their cost.
Yep.
And so you look for how to get the most value out of them. I would say that these cards are clearly at their best when you need both of the things that they're giving you. When you need some way to increase your hand size and you need the village. That's, of course, the best case for these. And they're pretty good when you're just looking for some way to increase your hand size. They do it non-terminally. And, they're not they're not quite in their best element at that point, but they're still good. And then they're at their saddest when you just need them for the village. When you're not really needing the draw so much, then that makes them a very expensive village. Still a good card. Not saying it's not, but...
I mean, if I need a village and I have Lost City, I'm not going to be sad about it.
Well, I'm just saying that...
I mean, maybe Lost City will be sad about it.
You'd prefer a cheaper option if it's available.
Lost City doesn't have feelings.
Yeah, Lost City...
It's just a card.
It's just a card.
It's cardboard and a sleeve.
And you would prefer a cheaper option if it's available. Obviously, if it's the only village, you go for it because it's the only village. But just evaluating what these cards do and what their strengths are, it's best when you can do both. It's happy to be draw, and it's meh to be a village. But it'll do it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this... this card, it's good, and in pretty much all of the cases you just stated, you're gonna want like a lot of them. With Lost City, you're gonna want a lot of them in your deck.
Yeah, typically I'm going to take as many Lost Cities as I feel like I have time to get, right? I'm going to be getting there's no reason not to put these in the deck, so I'm just going to get them unless I feel pressured to do something else for whatever reason. Like start greening or get payload or whatever.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to just shove all the Lost Cities in my deck right away. I'm going to get some balance of payload, so I'm not wasting and overdrawing and stuff like that. I think it's pretty frequent.
Yeah.
That I do care about the Lost City split.
So
if my opponent's going for it, I don't want to get totally boned.
This was interesting because it was a point on our outlines where we disagreed, and I said I don't usually, even though this pile does fairly often run out, not always, but it can, I don't usually care about the split, and it's not that I don't think the split is potentially important. It's that, you know, by the time that the Lost Cities are empty, if they are emptying, 10 free cards have been drawn by the players. And so both players have been sped up to some degree because the player has the Lost City, that speeds you up. The other players have been drawing cards, that speeds you up. Something's got to give. Like, the game has got to be ending pretty soon, so I don't find a 6-4 Lost City split to usually matter too much. Now, 7-3...
I think that's a load of crap. Like, I think you definitely care about the split. Like, all of this, the game will be able... See, here's the thing. Like, we can talk in the abstract as much as we want about what we think will often be the case.
Yeah.
But guess what? You, the listener... I mean, I'm assuming you're playing real games of Dominion with, like, the game rules of Dominion. And you're going to, you see a kingdom with Lost City on it. And at the start of the game, you're going to think to yourself, oh, golly gee, will the split matter? And guess what? It doesn't matter. You don't know. If your opponent's not going for it, well, the split's not going to matter, man. You have to see what your opponent's doing. You have to think about, oh, well, I have 3 of these now, and I could put this card in my deck that's better for me, or I could get more Lost Cities that maybe aren't as good as the other payload card. What do? Well, if my opponent gets 4 of them next turn and I can't do anything, that's bad. Or... if I put payload in my deck and maybe I'm better off that way. You can make that decision in the moment with all the information that you have there. So I'm not going to make some blanket statement about when Lost City is going to be great. I don't need to. But Jake will.
Yeah. No. So the other thing, let's talk about the other thing that you think about when you're gaining Lost Cities, and that's the thing that it does for your opponent.
Drawing my opponent a card. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another part of the cost. And
it's no fun, man.
It's no fun, and I think it's really important to be like cognizant of what that is actually doing for your opponent. It has a really variable impact.
I disagree. I don't think it matters in the slightest.
Okay, we'll come back to that. But so what I think that you need to be like mentally on top of where the game state is to the point that that drawing your opponent a card, it can span the gamut. In my experience, from being like a trivial concern that's just not a huge deal at all to actually making gaining Lost City a major mistake.
Major mistake.
Yes.
Wow, that's harsh.
And you definitely have to be like apprised of sort of what that extra card is actually going to do for your opponent at the time you allow them to draw it.
Please tell me how you would have any idea what that card is going to do for your opponent.
Thinking mostly. Is the main way. Thinking is OP.
What are you thinking about?
But you're tracking what your opponent's been doing. You're tracking what kinds of cards that they've already played. Things like that. You're like thinking about what kinds of price points you're trying to hit. Usually the early game of a game of Dominion revolves around both players trying to get to a certain price point to get some key card. Whether that's a $5 trasher or maybe it's even a $6 or a $7 buy like Inheritance or Forge
$5 Lost City.
Sure. But the thing is that you are you need to be apprised of what kind of benefit you're actually giving your opponent. Usually, and I'm not saying...
You're going to draw them a card.
And I am not saying that people should gain fewer Lost Cities. If anything... in my experience, I see the opposite. I see people too afraid to gain the Lost City because it is a really, really good card. But I have also, you do just need to be cognizant of it. I remember that Wandering Winder did a coaching video for one of my games of Dominion, and it was very clear that me and my opponent were both trying to spike 7 so we could get a Forge. Forge is really important on that board. And I get the Lost City, and Wandering Winder pauses the video, and he says, "Hey," and he goes through some math that I had already seen in the guy's shuffle. Said, basically, by gaining that Lost City right now, you have guaranteed that he's getting a Forge this turn when he wasn't before. You basically picked up a Forge and you handed it to him. You said, "Here, have this Forge, opponent. Have the game. I'm throwing you the game because I'm an idiot. No one will ever love you." And it was hard to hear that at the time, but it's what I needed to hear because being conscious of where your opponent is and what that extra card is going to do for them is really important to being able to play competently on boards that have Lost City.
Really important to be. So, like, how many stars had to align for you to know that you were going to give them a Forge? They had to be one card away from the bottom of their shuffle.
The point isn't the specific thing that happened. The point is that you're thinking about the things that could happen. The thing is that you need to be conscious of these things so that you can make informed decisions. A lot of the time, that decision is still get the Lost City, but if you're not
100% of the time, yeah.
If you're not thinking about it, you're setting yourself back with a huge disadvantage.
Okay, so if you have some way of knowing exactly what that card is going to do for your opponent...
It doesn't need to be exact. You just have to have an idea of the possibilities, and you have to have an idea of the probabilities. What are you probably giving them?
Well, if it is that uncertain, then why do you care so much about that uncertain thing that you're willing to contort the way you build your deck? I mean, I thought we were assuming that Lost City is now the best card for me to put in my deck. I've decided I have 5. This is the best card for my deck. I want it, but now I'm thinking, oh no, this drawback of drawing my opponent a card, maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
This is information that you need to be taking into account, though, because sometimes the putting the Lost City in your deck, is that your best move? So is the Lost City the best card for your deck is different from is gaining Lost City right now the best thing I can do? And those are two different questions. You need to be asking both of them in a Lost City game. I'm not saying don't gain the Lost City. I'm saying you need to be on top of this.
There's, like, no way you can... I mean, yes, you found one circumstance where you actually did know. They were one card away from the bottom of the shuffle. You knew exactly what they wanted.
one card away from the bottom of the
Then
shuffle.
how did you know that you were going to get them the Forge? You had no way of knowing that.
There are a lot of different kinds of situations like this that you can be thinking about. What's your opponent's average money density? How many cards do they need to see before they can buy the card they want? Things like that. Have they seen their key buy yet? The other thing is that usually what this will come into play with is like when you're considering the Lost City versus some other card. Like when it's already close whether or not you gain the Lost City in the first place. You think about where your opponent is in their shuffle. Sometimes if you haven't seen their good cards yet, you can, and they're close to the bottom of a shuffle, you can actually cause a reshuffle for them that's bad by gaining the Lost City. Not saying Lost City is an attack, that's a marginal tactic at best, but it is, you need to be apprised of these things to play competently with this card on the table.
That's so narrow. Like, first we're going to find this video that you're talking about. We'll link it in the show notes, and I'm going to take a look at it, and we're going to see this situation. So because that's educational. I want to know more information about this particular situation.
Dominion is narrow. Dominion is made up of a bunch of little narrow edge cases. You need to be considering the possibilities to be good at this game.
I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't consider all the information in front of you. However, if you're going to... I don't think that there's really any... I've played hundreds, thousands of games since Adventures came out. I don't know how many of them had Lost City in it. I've played a lot of games with Lost City. I have never had this come up where I had any idea, other than my opponent draws a card, what kind of benefit I would be giving them. And never has it even come close.
It definitely has for me.
Then I would question, like... I question that. I want to see more about that situation. I just don't think it. I really don't. I would want to see more about all of them. I don't think it's anywhere close to being like a big enough deal that I would consider not putting a Lost City in my card if I thought it was the best card for my deck.
Well, so a lot of the time you are choosing between putting the Lost City in your deck and some other good cards. So you think about not just what's the best card for my deck, what's the best move for me to win this game right now.
Well, if there's one empty pile and it's between Lost City and City, then yeah, sure, man. But man, it's never even come close to happening for me. We're gonna have a similar argument about the on-game drawback of Cursed Village. Stay tuned for Making Luck, a bickering podcast.
Yeah. So that's Lost City. And we also have Cursed Village. So, Cursed Village we already read the text of these cards. Yeah.
It's a village. It's draw. It's Cursed Village. Woo!
Now, we talked about these cards being generically strong, like pretty much always good. That's good. That's true of like every copy of Lost City, but it's true with like a caveat with Cursed Village, because it's really only like the first or second copy of Cursed Village you get that like guaranteed Lost City value.
Hashtag guaranteed Lost City value.
Yeah, and past that, there's the chance that you play a Cursed Village, and then the second one that you play that turn is not nearly as good. Or maybe you've drawn some other cards, and it's not as good because you've drawn cards some other way.
Yeah, so if I want to draw a lot of cards, I'm just going to jam some Cursed Villages. Like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get some Cursed Villages. I'm going to draw a lot of cards. Don't do that.
Now,
get something else.
So the first or second copy of Cursed Village is almost always as good as the Lost City.
Yeah.
Often better.
And if they hit you with a militia, you're like, hey, look at me. I don't drew back up to 6, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, it's fake news that draw to X counters discard attacks. Please don't operate under that assumption.
Well, I mean, like, in that situation it does, but, like, I'm not going to play a draw to X deck because they're going for militia, right? And I'm not going to not go for militia because they're playing it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in these, like, draw to X
news.
scenarios, you'd still prefer not to be attacked, is the bottom line.
In some cases, whatever. I don't really care.
So you get that first Lost City, and it's pretty good, and usually, or the Cursed Village, and it's pretty good for you. And then subsequent copies get a little bit worse usually.
Yeah.
Right. And that's assuming that you're not really like playing to this card's synergies, and this card does have the usual draw to X synergies with disappearing payload, things that cards that resolve to reduce your hand size by some amount, and then you play the Cursed Village and it draws more cards because of that.
Sure. So, like, this is let's talk about draw to X for a half a second.
Sure.
We did, and by we, I actually don't mean Jake. This is one of the first episodes of Making Luck.
I wasn't even born yet.
Before Jake was even born. Wandering Winder and I did an episode about draw to X decks, so we'll link that in the show notes. Go ahead and have a listen. I think it withstands the test of time, even though it was made before, like, all of the expansions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I was even...
Yeah, before Jake even was... Anyway, so draw to X decks, they're not good. They're not good.
Right.
They have a lot of issues. They require a lot of support. And when I say require, I mean the deck doesn't work really at all unless you have this support. So, like, it has issues with consistency and reliability. You need to find the right cards at the right point in your turn, and if you don't, well, your deck's not going to function. You need strong trashing, or else the deck isn't going to work at all. And you usually need a lot of villages for it to work well. More villages than you would in some other type of deck. And so Cursed Village, it helps you with a couple of these downsides.
That's part of where Cursed Village, I think, stands. I think first off, I want to say I agree with like everything you're saying about these draw to X decks and cards. Like, I think in general,
it's the gospel truth, bro.
It's a really overrated mechanic, draw to X. It's like if there's some other way that you can be. Now, like, don't get me wrong. There are boards that just have so much support for it, where you're like, okay, this is the thing you do here.
Yeah.
But like, if it's between like drawing to X and some other mechanic I can use to control
drawing
my deck.
to like maybe more than X.
Right.
Yeah.
Or being able to play the cards in whatever order I want to play them.
Playing a deck that isn't bad.
Right, and that's the big thing. It's not that the X is too small in my experience. It's that it restricts the order you get to play the cards in, and that's
all
the
the
really
above,
crippling.
man.
So
Giant pain in the tokens.
agreeing with all of that, I will say Cursed Village kind of stands apart.
It's one of the better ones for sure.
Because it's a village, like you said.
Yeah.
Because the main thing that these decks are suffering from is inflexibility, and what do villages give you? Flexibility. So the fact that Cursed Village kind of comes in with this built-in sort of remedy to one of Draw to X's problems makes it a pretty solid choice a lot of the time.
Those consistency issues came from Draw to X cards that are terminal, meaning you need to find at least one village and a Draw to X card to kick your turn off. And really, you would want to find multiple villages.
Right.
That's a lot of cards to ask for in an opening hand of 5 cards, but with Cursed Village, you only need to find one copy of Cursed Village. So you can spam these things so that you can make sure to have one in your starting hand. And that's really good for these decks. And also, like, it needs a lot of villages, and, Cursed Village, I don't know if you realized this, is a village.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, it's right on the thing.
Yeah. Mind
Nice.
equals blown.
Yeah, so are you getting the calculator out? Oh. So, I think that when we talk about Cursed Village, we can talk about using it in 2 different ways. So, there's the Draw to X deck, right, which is where you are basically finagling your turn around drawing as many cards with this Draw to X mechanic as you can. And like a lot of these cards, when you're trying to draw with them, demand that you do that, like Library or Watchtower when you're using Watchtower for draw, and or kind of Minion in a way.
So like Minion and Menagerie play
Minion
by
is weird.
Different rules because they're non-terminal. So
Yeah,
go
right.
ahead and continue your point. I have a note to get back to.
So there's that deck, right? But and Cursed Village, I think, plays nice in decks that aren't doing that, is the big difference. It's like, I don't have to play to a Draw to X deck, per se, to get value out of drawing with Cursed Village, because I can just put like 1 or 2 of them in the deck and draw 2 cards off of it, maybe more if I have lined it up with some disappearing payload by chance. But so it kind of has that benefit of not necessarily committing you to playing that archetype.
So I'm gonna put a lot of asterisks besides that.
Sure.
So the first thing is that you need to get this benefit. Let's say you're drawing with something else. You have to have some way of having a Cursed Village at the start of your turn.
Usually that's the case.
That's one possibility
Yeah.
in order to make this not awful.
Right. To make the dream work.
It's like teamwork making the dream. I'm sorry, that I couldn't get it to work. I'm really tired. Okay, so the other thing you can do is you can spam Cursed Villages.
That's usually bad.
Yeah, I was
Usually-
just about to say that.
You usually want to have, like, even in a deck that's like relying on the Cursed Village, in my experience, you want like 3 max. And just, that's not a hard and fast rule, but
I mean, we'll get to it when we talk a little more about that on-game drawback. But like spamming this card hurts because you have to potentially hurt yourself every time you get it. So the more you do it, the more you're gonna potentially hurt yourself. And so you stop hitting yourself.
right. It's like you're hitting yourself.
Yeah, it's just like you're hitting yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember, like, when you had, like, an older brother that would, oh, I'm not hitting Adam. Adam can't tell on me. No?
Right. I had a little sister, but...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. So, these cases where you're not playing the Draw to X deck, you still have a lot of limitations in order for Cursed Village to give you that much value. Past that, like, I mean, obviously it's going to be worse than Lost City if it's going to draw you 0 cards, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. But if you're going to, I mean, you're really going to pay $5 and hex yourself to get a card that just gives you 2 actions and maybe draws you 1 card, like, that feels pretty bad.
Well, the funny part is that sometimes the answer is yes when it's the only
If you're,
village,
like, ultra desperate, then maybe. But, remember the Wharf episode?
Yeah, I was just about to bring up the Wharf episode. We did that Kingdom where, and you said it was literally the only time you have ever seen it where it wasn't worth getting villages out and playing multiple wharfs.
Yeah, that's the only time
Cursed
I've ever
Village
had
and Wharf. Yeah, duration draw in general is quite bad for Cursed Village.
Yeah. Sounds like it sucks, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to hit Minion and Menagerie before continuing on, if that's okay. So, I mean, Cursed Village is not only, I mean, it's a village, right, and it draws to X, but it's non-terminal, right? And so Minion and Menagerie, they both, they also are non-terminal, and they draw to X. So with Menagerie, the X can be very large, and that causes it to break a lot of the rules. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about this in previous episodes.
Yeah.
As far as Minion goes, Minion also gives you this flexibility, right? Cursed Village is always going to be deck control for you. So in the course of your draw to X life, over the course of your turn, you know, what you want is every time you draw back up to 6, you want to have some kind of mix of payload and deck control cards. In those 6 cards. And, you know, even if you've built your deck really well, you're still going to have some of those combinations that are going to be mostly payload or mostly deck control. And what are you going to do? Well, your turn's going to suck. Minion can help get around that by being both of them in 1 card, so it gives you a lot of flexibility, which Cursed Village doesn't give you. So, I mean, yes, it's good, and it's the kind of thing that works well in these decks, and it can solve some of the issues, but there are still other issues related to draw to X decks, which Cursed Village is not going to help you get around.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to know what you're getting into when you put the Cursed Village in your deck. The Cursed Village is not... It doesn't play very nice with other sources of draw, for sure.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you never put it in a deck that has these other sources of draw, but it certainly...
Feels bad.
Well, it can, yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Cursed Village and the Lost City, if we're comparing the two, it's interesting.
Yeah, we haven't bickered, like, in a while.
Yeah.
It's been, like, 10 or 15 minutes since you've said something that, like, deeply offended me. So let's get going.
Yeah, let's get on that. So, is one of these cards better than the other one?
Yes.
Absolutely not. Because...
I was kidding, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dominion doesn't work in a way that we can just say that, like, Lost City is better than Cursed Village or what have you. And also... there's no reason to answer that conversation unless they're literally both right in front of you in a kingdom and you're choosing which one to put in your deck.
Yeah, I know that we promised you bickering, but like what he said was really, I mean, first of all, it was smart, right? And
I wouldn't go that far.
I will. Shut your mouth. That was brilliant.
Sorry.
There you go. That's the bickering.
Yeah.
Anyway, not only was it like smart and relevant, but, like, it's important that we don't, like, say stupid things on the podcast.
We try not to.
I've never said anything that was stupid or never even given any, like, analysis of a kingdom that was even off in the slightest. Yeah.
We've never gone there.
Yeah, it's never happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, I mean, there's obviously situations where I would play a Cursed Village, and it would be better for me than a Lost City. I mean, yeah, you're not playing a great deck at that point, but sure, good for you. It can happen. Hashtag judgment match. Anyway, please continue. Sorry.
Well, I mean, if we're going to say, like, is Lost City better than Cursed Village, or is Cursed Village better than Lost City, it's a hard thing to say because the Lost City has a higher floor. It's always going to do this certain amount for you.
Yeah.
And but then again, it's got a little of a lower ceiling than Cursed Village. Cursed Village potentially has a higher upside, but it potentially does a lot less than Lost City. So you, I mean, if I'm going to gain like half the pile of one of them, yeah, give me those Lost Cities. But if I am hitting 5 pretty early and I need some deck control card, and I'm only gonna have like one or two of them. Usually, I'm gonna say the Cursed Village is probably doing a little more for me.
Why?
Well, because it's just more likely that I'll have some. It's pretty likely that I'll have some disappearing payload somewhere it'll draw me. It could potentially draw me more than 2 cards. It's usually going to draw me at least 2 cards, and it's decently likely to draw me more than that.
Okay, so these situations where you have that disappearing payload, or you're going to be drawing more than 2 cards with the Cursed Village, like, that's not something I think you can plan around unless you're building your deck around it.
Well,
notably, you need more villages than just the Cursed Village.
You don't necessarily need to plan around that, though, because the thing is, the Cursed Village is usually going to draw me at least 2 cards, and then it has
first one.
Yeah, and then it has this option of drawing more. So usually, like the first
it's
one or
not
two,
an option.
Well, it has this possibility that it might draw more. And so, also, this comes down to, I think that usually...
Here it comes.
I would rather get Hex than let my opponent draw a card.
It
depends on a lot.
I think almost all the time I don't want to get hexed.
I don't want to get hexed either, but, like, half the hexes don't do anything in the buy phase.
Yeah, and then the other half really suck.
Some of them kind of suck, but...
Sometimes you draw your opponent a card and it doesn't help him.
Well, I mean, that's...
It doesn't help him that much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But, man, I'd usually rather take a hex than let my opponent draw a card.
So, we should maybe get into a little more detail so we can focus down what we're going to bicker about.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. If I'm going to be gaining one of these cards in the middle of my turn, I'd probably rather it be Lost City. So, remember I said half the hexes don't do anything in the buy phase. Gaining Cursed Villages in the middle of your turn, you get into some of the considerations where we had with Leprechaun, right? Where there are these certain hexes that are just going to totally hamstring your turn.
Yeah, we published that episode, right?
Oh God, I hope so.
I'm pretty sure we did. It was a mini-sode. We'll link it in the show notes. But we were talking about like 3 hexes that really matter for Leprechaun because they can happen in the middle of your turn. There was Poverty, which is discard down to 3, and then there's a couple other ones that really hurt.
Envious, Delusion. So like those can really suck. The other one that sucks to get with Cursed Village is the Trashing Hex, because occasionally you'll gain the Cursed Village and then you'll immediately get that hex that trashes the Cursed Village.
So you're talking about Locusts.
Locusts and...
So War hurts.
I've cost reduced it and lost it to War, too.
Well, that's pretty narrow, but War can hurt, too. Like, War is pretty annoying, but Locust, I think, is the funniest one.
I've had so many... It's happened to me, like, 3 times where I've bought a Cursed Village and then immediately lost it to Locust.
Yeah, like, that happens a lot more often. Like, maybe this is not, like, confirmation bias. This isn't any of that. Like, that's just happened an unjust amount of times.
Yeah, it happens, like, 99% of the time.
You can buy a Cursed Village and lose that very Cursed Village to Locust.
Yeah.
But more commonly, it's because I have a few of them in my deck, and then I buy the Cursed Village, and then I Locust one of the other one. It feels really bad, because you've decided this is the best card for my deck. And then Dominion is like, no, you're not getting that card.
You're getting this other one.
You should have played around it. Woo!
Yeah, okay, so do you ever find yourself tracking the Hex deck because of the Cursed Village?
No. That seems like a waste of time.
Okay, I will say I do occasionally, but it's only when I'm gaining the Cursed Villages in the middle of my turn. Like if I'm gaining
the Leprechaun thing, sure.
Yeah, if I'm gaining the Cursed Villages during the action phase, I find myself needing to track the Hex deck. If I'm just buying them, usually not. And a lot of the time, I don't really even care if I'm getting hit with a Hex by the Cursed Village. I mean, I care.
Yeah,
but,
I care, but like, what are you gonna do
during the buy phase? A lot of them like do like almost nothing too. So
yeah, there's 5 of them that can like really wreck you. We talked about Locust. We touched on War. There was Delusion. It's the one that makes you not buy actions, but a little bit of a rules thing. If I'm in my buy phase and I get Delusion, that doesn't prevent me from buying actions this turn. It happens my next buy phase. So my next turn sucks, not this turn.
Yeah.
And then there's also Greed and Plague. Greed gains you
The
a
junking
copper,
ones, yeah.
and Plague gets you a curse. And since these
Those can
decks
suck.
require really strong trashing in order to function, these are particularly bad if you want to build this kind of a deck. And so I'm concerned about these hex. And then there's Miserable, which is not great. I'm concerned
depends
about
on what
these
phase of the game.
Well, sure. I'm concerned about these things in decks where I want to pick up a number of Cursed Villages. If I just want one or two, I'm just gonna just throw my cards in the air and hope they land the right way and whatever. But if I'm gonna be hexing myself multiple times, I can expect to get totally hosed by one of these or maybe more of these at some point in time.
At some point, unless your opponent's going for the same deck and they take all the bad hexes for you.
I mean,
that's not something you can plan around.
Maybe that's something you can play around.
No,
that
I was
is
just
not
kidding.
Something I can play around.
It's something. I mean, it's something.
I'm the one that's taking all of the bad hexes.
I certainly appreciate it when it happens.
I wonder what that's like.
Yeah.
Human. so anyway,
yeah.
When you think about I'm going to go for Cursed Villages, I'm going to get a lot of them. You're going to get hexed many times.
Yeah.
And yes, Lost City, you can draw your opponent cards and good things can happen to them. I think that the potential of that effect, especially the additive potential of that fact, is going to overall be less than knowing you are going to get dicked over 2 to 3 times in a significant way just from picking up this card.
Yeah, so there's also this consideration, and coming back to the Lost Cities, if we're comparing these two drawbacks, the hex is always going to be a hex, but there are of course going to be times when your opponent was going to draw their deck anyway. And if your opponent is drawing your deck anyway, then and you need the Lost City, it implies maybe you're behind on draw, which is sad. But
it's fine. They draw them a card, whatever.
Yeah, sure. So if they were gonna draw their deck anyway, the Lost City is just fine to gain, and quite likely the best card that you can get for 5. If you also later on in the game too, I find that drawing the extra card tends to be a little bit impactful, just because the decks tend to be more powerful anyway. Hitting that one key price point tends not to be super important unless that price point is Province. In which case, I don't know. Why was I putting Lost City in a deck that's having trouble hitting a Province? But
it's a generically good card, but I see the point you're trying to make.
Toward the middle of the game and the end of the game, maybe that on-gain benefit is a little less. But then, of course, the times that you want to put Lost Cities in your deck, and Cursed Villages for that matter, are toward the beginning of the game because it's a strong control card. That's when those cards tend to be good.
Yeah, sure. So we've addressed the difference in the on-game drawbacks, but that's not the only way that Lost City and Cursed Village are different.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a couple more comparisons that we can make. I want to talk about the fact that, and this goes back to a lot of why draw to X decks in general are weak, and
Sure.
This shows itself in Cursed Village. I can play 5 Lost Cities, and I can have 55 cards in my hand.
Yeah.
And that's so good, because I have in my hand, at one time, 55 cards. I can play them in whatever order I choose.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's legal. I can do that. With Cursed Villages, I don't get that flexibility. I also get the flexibility when playing Lost City of using other types of payload that might be incompatible with the Draw to X deck. I'm thinking about coppers, or maybe silvers, or perhaps a gold. Or other cards. Even
if you're into that.
With these types of cards, that even if they disappear from your hand, it's still very good to be able to draw them. I don't have to put extra villages in my deck just so my deck can function. If I'm going for Cursed Village and I'm going to try to play these cards, I can build more efficiently. My deck is more consistent. It actually tolerates having green cards in it. So this sort of additive effect of Lost City, I'm going to draw 2 more cards. I'm going to draw 2 more cards. I want all the cards. I want to just lay down on the floor and rub the cards on my face because I have all of them in my hand.
This, by the way, is why why that one game store asks you not to Anyway, go ahead.
I sleeve my cards, okay?
That's not the issue. But there are children here.
The boy's upstairs. He's asleep.
Yeah.
It took long enough to get him that way, but he's asleep.
Yeah. I want to go poke him.
I mean, you can if you want, but if you wake him up, yeah, that's probably, that one might not be great. Anyway, and so like this additive effect, it opens you up to more types of payload, but also opens you up to more types of deck control, because you said before, Cursed Village doesn't play nice with other forms of draw.
Yeah, particularly orange draw, but also like other forms of draw in general.
Yeah, Lost City don't care.
Yeah,
You can get your wharf, you can get your caravan, you can get your smithy, man.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Your hunting grounds, what have you.
Nice.
Yeah. When we asked for feedback on this topic in the Discord, I think RTT said something interesting. He said that the Lost City is a card that works well with other forms of terminal draw. Cursed Village is a village that is pretty happy to be supporting terminal payload and sad to be supporting terminal draw.
Sure. I mean, I've got like that Cursed Village Wharf PTSD.
Yeah.
I mean, terminal payload. I already nitpicked at this.
Sure.
It's payload that lets you draw more cards. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what non-terminal payload is out there, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think the value of specifying terminal is just because if it's terminal, it usually has some extra effect, right?
Yeah, I just don't want to give the idea that, like, Cursed Village is a village, and I will want to play many terminal payload cards for this purpose. Because, like, if I'm playing a Cursed Village, and then I'm going to play a terminal payload card, and I have one action left, well, I need to play a Cursed Village now. And so I'm just drawing 2 cards with it. This is much worse than Lost City would be, because I'm still just drawing the 2 cards, but now I don't get that flexibility in how I play my turn. I necessarily have to have a Cursed Village and a terminal payload card in my 6 cards. And if I don't, well, screw you, your turn's over, and you suck.
Yeah,
that was my deck talking to me.
And you suck, right?
Yeah.
And no one will ever, Anyway.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Right. So, now that we've kind of taken our time to really get our fists all bloody about the Cursed Village and the Lost City,
yeah, man.
We should talk about a kingdom, and we went ahead and threw both into these, into this kingdom, and we're going to play it. So...
Later.
We've got these cards in the kingdom, 10 of them specifically, and some horizontal things as well. All right, the cards are Vineyard, Forager, Gear, Oracle, Storeroom, Noble Brigand, Plaza, Cursed Village, Lost City, and Pillage. We also have the events Triumph and Wedding. Once more for our audio-only listeners, we have Vineyard, Forager, Gear, Oracle, Storeroom, Noble Brigand, Plaza, Cursed Village, Lost City, Pillage, and we also have Wedding and Triumph. So
I looked at this for a minute, and I haven't really given it the full thought process, but it actually seems like Lost City and Cursed Village are, like, kind of close in terms of which one might be, quote, better, or which one I might want more of.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the Cursed Village has more things here that support it, but the Lost City has... it has the flexibility to be working with these other sources of draw as well. And I think you probably are getting both.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if I ended up with both in my deck. So Cursed Village has the synergy here with Storeroom. You play Cursed Village, and then you play Storeroom, and you discard all your cards for money, and then you play a Cursed Village, and you draw back up. Woo!
That's not great by itself.
Like, it's a synergy.
It's a synergy. Right? It's not a deck.
I mean, itself. you can play a deck with just those cards, and I think it might be better than big money.
I think that it might not be, though.
I mean, it's kind of close, but I think it's better than big money.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit better than big money. Certainly not the best thing you could do here. I mean, I think I'm getting a Storeroom for sure. Like,
I think Storeroom's a great card in this deck.
Yeah, I think Storeroom is possibly one of the most important cards on this board.
Well, it's the only way to increase your deck size. The other plus buy card, Forager, requires you to trash a card. And at some point, I'm going to be done trashing my cards, and I still want to gain more stuff. And especially with Vineyard around, plus buy is very important. So yes, definitely Storeroom is going to be really good.
Yeah, so, I mean, you get the plazas are quite good with the Cursed Village as well.
Man.
I mean, like,
the plazas are...
Like, I mean, it's decent.
There's maybe like a mild synergy. I just remember, like, back in the day, people are like, "Oh, Plaza Watchtower! I'm gonna open Plaza Watchtower! I'm gonna get Plazas on Watchtower!
Okay.
I'm gonna play the Plaza Watchtower deck!" And then I would beat them by buying silver and a Watchtower.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the thing. I mean, the plazas are a little better than what he's describing here, mostly because, again, Cursed Village is a village. But the
yeah, man.
Yeah,
it totally is. I don't really know that I'm going to be getting super many plazas. Like, I want to get thin. I'm
going to get a few, mostly just because they're a action card that isn't taking up deck space, and vineyards are a thing.
I don't know. I think just about every time you would put a Plaza in the deck, you'd just put a Storeroom in the deck instead. You might be better off. I mean, sure, if your terminal space is borked, maybe. But I think you're going to have a number of Cursed Villages and Lost Cities in the deck. I think you probably want them both.
Yeah, that could be the case.
I mean, if I have dead terminals, man, I really don't care. What I really want to be doing is, if I'm being mirrored, I want to find my potion a whole bunch and win the Vineyard split. And Storeroom is much better at doing that than Plaza is.
That's
so
true.
Give me all of the Storerooms.
Sure, that's very true. And so I wonder if you're going to get Pillages here. The Pillages aren't really helping you with Vineyard too much, but there is the attacking the opponent is pretty nice if you can snipe their one Cursed Village out of their hand. The Pillage is good if you're doing a big Triumph turn, so there's that. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Pillage was completely skippable as well, though.
So it depends on a lot.
It depends on, are you needing to slow your opponent down with the attack, too?
Right. I think there's some recourse here. Let's say I don't win the Vineyard split. Maybe I get like 3 to 5 Vineyards. I only have the 3. And let's say the game isn't also like immediately over.
Yeah.
Which is possible here. I mean, a lot of these piles are kind of expensive. So I have some recourse here. I can go for a deck that focuses on getting more points from Triumph, and I think Pillage is actually really good in that deck.
Yeah.
Pillage gains you 2 spoils, which will give you Triumph points.
Yeah.
If you manage to get a Triumph that turn. And also, it's a pretty decent attack. I mean, Cursed Village is usually not too bothered by getting discard attack, but Pillage...
Yeah, if it hits the Cursed Village,
that'll get you right between the legs, man. You don't want that to happen. So, like, I could really see Pillage just wrecking someone's, especially if they have, like, 5 Vineyards in their deck, you know?
Well,
like,
the other thing...
Take away their draw cards, and then, like...
The other card I think we need to talk about here is gear. And, one, I'm wondering how many gears do you want? I think you're opening with at least 1. And,
I think I'm opening with Forager Silver.
I think I'm opening Forager Gear. But the...
That's close. I don't think about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so and how many gears am I going to end up with? I think the number is more than 1. And if the opponent gains Pillages, I think I'm kind of inclined to play around that a little bit with my gear. You know, like setting things aside in the gear that until I see their Pillage. But I don't know. I mean, maybe this is kind of hard to talk about without it actually happening to me.
I don't think I'm going to even consider getting Pillage until it's later on. And
yeah.
And at that point, like, you're not going to be in a position to pivot into gear, which is, like, one of the reasons why I would get the Pillage, right? Because it's going to be hard for you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about this kind of thing without it actually being in front of you and happening.
Yeah, true dat, yo. I don't see myself getting... If I get a gear, it's probably in the opening, and I don't think I would get more than one. Man, I'm still pretty warm on Forager Silver, but Silver's not an action card, but man, you're going to need to hit 5 somehow.
I think the gear is enough to help you hit 5.
That's hard to do.
No, the gear will do it. Like, you...
The Forager... I think I'm going to lean towards the Silver. I could be wrong.
I'm going to set aside...
I'm going to go the Silver.
Thing is, I'm going to set aside cards to make sure I hit 5. So...
Unless you can't.
Well,
I don't know,
there's no situation where you can't.
I would just rather shove a million storerooms in the deck, and that's just so good with a Silver in your life, because like you play storeroom, you search so many cards to find your Silver, and then like you're gonna hit 5, and that's just so good. Like I want so many storerooms.
I mean, I do too.
It actually starts to resemble that like Cursed Village storeroom shell, only like with the thinning that Forager provides you, and then like something more to shoot for. Like that's pretty decent.
I mean, I want the storerooms too. Like we're on the same page there. I'm just also I think the gear is better to help you get there because it's helping you get the Cursed Villages and possibly Lost Seduce early.
I just got done saying I think the Silver is better along with those storms to help you hit 5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Let us know what you think. Leave us a comment in the comments section if you are watching this video on YouTube. Which one do you get first? How would you open? God, I need to sleep more. I did half of 2 thoughts and I didn't finish it. Which of Cursed Village or Lost City would you get first, or would you get one of them and not the other? How would you open? Would you open with Silver, Gear, Forager, Storeroom, Silver?
Feel free to rank the hexes in the comments.
Yeah, we would really like to hear about that. If you're not watching this on YouTube, if you are an audio-only listener, if you're listening to this anywhere else, we want to thank you for listening to the podcast. Even if you are a new listener, glad to have you aboard. You can head on over to adamhorton.com, and you can find our contact information. There's forums there, a link to our Discord server. You can go there and you can talk about, really whatever you want, but usually we talk about Dominion, maybe a podcast. There's a whole channel for Salt, Tilt, and Whining that I haven't used in a while. I need to find something to whine on in there.
Oh, there's a lot of different channels in there for various topics that haven't been touched.
What's up with that?
Remember Slay the Spire?
Oh, yeah. I guess I still need to try that game, don't I?
Yeah.
I heard it was pretty good.
It's coming out for Switch.
Ooh. I don't have a Switch, though.
Well, that's a problem.
I guess I need to get one, huh?
Yeah.
Someday. I don't know when I'd play it. Actually, I do know when I'd play it. If the boy ever gets to the point where he's content watching me play video games...
18.
I'm getting a Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Switch is pretty great.
Yeah. This podcast is not sponsored by Nintendo, but if you want to give us a call, Nintendo, I'm right here. You can go to adamhorton.com, get our contact information. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Nice. Thanks for listening.
So, by the way, if I decided to marry Camilla in Fire Emblem.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So, if that was who you were going to choose,
Jake is registered at Bed Bath & Beyond.
Well, if that's who you're going to choose, then I want to congratulate you on winning the raffle.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If you want to, you can go, you can check out the registry.
Yeah.
And you can get Jake a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stuff from his registry.
Yeah, totally.
This is an exciting time in his life.
Feel free to just send me things.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah, so if you're inclined to do that, maybe you can win the raffle or something. I don't know.
Right, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I won the raffle.
Yeah,
Never
you
had that.
Wait a second, you've won the you won the raffle before.
Yeah, that's true, but
But
I haven't in a while.
okay. All right.
In my defense, I haven't won the raffle in a good
few raffles.
Yeah, is there anyone who has won the raffle in a while?
So welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.